Hello guys, abiliotalks here, first episode of the year. Yay, I'm back. And I have the honor to kick off the 2022 season with two special guests, and I'm not kidding, they're special because one hired me and the other one picked me up at the airport when I arrived in Auckland, New Zealand. So I'm talking today in these Bits and Beers episode 3, first one in 2022 with Alexis, Giral, and Marcus Koenig. And they're partners in an IBM Business Partner called Systemethix, and that's the conversation we're going to have today. So welcome, happy New Year, guys. And let me start with you, Alex. Can you introduce yourself for us? I know you for a long time, but yeah, maybe someone in the audience doesn't know you. So, yep.
So, Alexis Giral, work for IBM France, IBM Japan, IBM Australia. And about 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago, left, resigned from IBM. And with Marcus, we decided to create an IT shop, an IBM Business Partner company. Worked in infrastructure, I would say, all my career. Essentially, so infrastructure, storage, networking, work in delivery, worked in pre-sales, works in advanced technical support. At the end, worked also as a technical sales manager and as an executive IT architect across Asia Pacific and Australia.
Yeah, I was going to comment by your accent. You already mentioned that you're from France, but yeah, it is.
Well, believe it or not, I went one day in an hotel in Melbourne, and I said, "Oh, Mike, you must be speaking French." He said, "No, I speak Belgium." So who knows? Even if I have a strong French accent, I might not be coming from France eventually.
Funny. Marcus already was with me at IBM. We were having a coffee, something, and my English also has an accent because I coming from Brazil, and the lady from the counter was, "Oh, you were French?" And I said, "No, Brazilian." For some reason, for English ears, when you come from Brazil or French, the accents that we use in certain words are pretty similar. So it didn't happen one time, more than one time, but it's very funny. Cool. And did you study IT at the university, something like that, or?
Yeah. Basically, I was doing snowboard competitions, and then started to get some injuries and join a university, studied math, science, and IT. Realized I was pretty good in IT, so I then joined an IT school where we were in 4 years studying IT, but at the same time doing the equivalent of an MBA. Where I graduated, so in digital signal recognition and finance. So 6 years of
love at first sight. So
exactly.
So yeah, and what about you, Marcus? So you are not from France, I suppose.
No, thanks for having us. And you did really well pronouncing my surname. I guess from that, people could almost tell. I'm from Germany, and now since I'm speaking a little bit, you might hear that as well. Yeah, I'm from Germany. Worked only in IBM New Zealand, mostly.
But you were in a business partner over Germany, right?
I worked for a number of business partners in New Zealand and Germany. One in Germany and a client. That's how I started out, getting my IBM passion after my study or during my degree. That I was lucky enough to get a paid, university spot. with a big kind of drugstore, hygienic store retailer in Germany. They were full on IBM shop with a mainframe and everything storage from IBM, everything backup and service and everything. So that's where I got very close to the IBM ecosystem and migrating to New Zealand 15 years ago, roughly, with my family back then, about 2 years after I finished my degree, or 1.5 years. And then, arriving in New Zealand as tourists, 2 little kids, 3 and 1 year old, and, just jumping into it with just a little bit of, savings on the side to keep us afloat for a few months, and then finding a job, working for a number of business partners then in New Zealand, and finally at IBM. And then we did a bit of an endeavor going back to Germany for 3 years to, reconnect with friends and family. And coming back to New Zealand after, where I was almost hired by Alexis, but because Alexis was on holiday in France at the time, I was actually interviewed by other people, and then started at IBM in New Zealand in the position at Abiliotalks, I think you're still working in, as a CTS for storage. That's how it started. Kind of became friends with Alexis, and then had that idea, or picked up that idea from Alexis, that starting a business might be a good shot here, providing our customers that we were working with, and new customers, of course, with expertise in the area where we are quite skilled in. So my background is also data center infrastructure, mostly spanning from, I'm pretty heavy on the Unix side, but also very much into storage and backup and general big data, oceans and lakes and whatever they are called next week. That's kind of a very hands-on person, I would say, with a little bit of pre-sales skill on the side.
Nice. So we can see from the start that is a very technical group of people that Systemethix is putting together. So that's a very, very cool. And just to mention, Marcus was so keen to get out of his role that he was personally chasing me. Alexis didn't know that. He was like 1 month before I moved, he was, hey, are we going to come? Yeah, but because I have this role here, this new role, I need someone to get my place. You're really coming? Are you sure that you're really coming? He picked me up at the airport. So
I think it was 5 a.m., wasn't it?
5 a.m. And we never met before, right? So we were not using not even. It was sometime, I guess, that we didn't know our faces or something like that. Well, we knew the picture.
Oh, just
Yeah.
But yeah, it was only chat, right? On the same time.
Yeah, it was only chat. That's amazing. Yeah. 7
Almost-
7 years ago.
Almost like a Tinder date, eh?
Yeah, almost like a Tinder date. Yeah. I was going. Something pop up in my mind now, but I will not tell, because that will make Alexis laugh, and he asked us to not make him laugh because of his pain. But yeah, cool.
Indeed.
You guys are working together for 4 years now?
Yeah, we started in October 2017.
October 2000. A question that I will ask firstly to Marcus and then to Alexis, because I work for IBM almost 2 decades now, and I know Alexis told me that he worked for IBM in several countries, and it was not. I'm pretty sure it was not a sudden decision. So, it was like suddenly, but he planned his entrepreneur career. But I will ask firstly to Marcus, and then I want your point of view after Marcus, Alexis. Working for a big company like IBM or any of the big business partner that you were working so far, Marcus, and then become an entrepreneur, create your startup, and but now you don't have your salary coming. very smoothly every single day, and you don't need to worry. You pick your holidays, you just choose the dates and you go. But now you own your own business with people that you never worked as a business partner before, as owners and founders of a company. How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting experience. I would say from on one hand, I think I did work as if I was working for myself in all my positions before, at IBM, at all the business partners I worked for, Count Pay Computer in Germany, for example. I kind of, worked as if it's my business, keeping the customer focus, the outcome in sight, and putting it all in. And I believe that helps when you start a business, because you don't have to change your kind of approach too much. Now, however, there's obviously the flip side. Starting a business is a very interesting challenge, and you could say it could be quite hard. We did start off quite rough with, as many businesses that start up, you need to rely on your savings or on your revolving mortgage in my case, right? So we set ourselves up and just took out the money from the house mortgage to live on, with a family with 5 kids. There's a bit of anxiety behind that, but at the end I was quite confident that we can at least make it work, to make ends meet initially, and I believe we did that quite quickly. But the learnings were, you can compare that with drinking from a fire hose, really. In terms of finance, I did not have any background around finance, only my crippled common sense, so to say. And same with all the marketing and sales, and doing it really end to end and seeing what's required to conduct a deal. Like only seeing it from a business partner or IBM perspective is fairly simple. As a technical specialist, you convince the client this is the right solution to purchase, and then the magic happens in the background, all the pricing and all that stuff. I mean, obviously that was still involved from a technical perspective, but not as much, and the contractuals especially. So lots and lots of new things to pick up, which was a little bit hard at the beginning, but I think building up the business now, being ISO certified and working on more ISO certifications, helps to implement that structure that you require at the end to make it simpler, and you have processes in place, a little bit like IBM, but not as complicated yet. So yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. What about you, Alexis? Well, why I did ask firstly to Marcus, because Alexis Giral was already an executive at IBM, while Marcus was a technical specialist. And of course, there was a big difference of pay grade there, right? And I imagine that was, and you already told me this several times, Marcus, and I was imagining that would be difficult. But I guess that the challenge in your side was a little bit different, Alexis, or no, it was the same?
Well, I think if it was easy to start a business, everybody would do it. And what you realize when you start your business, a small business where you try to keep things under control, and I mean by this, financing came from the founders. We are all at the same level, so we are not anymore IBM, or I won't give any other name. We are not an army. We end up being more like a SWAT team, where everybody needs to have some specialties, but at the same time, we need to be able to cover everything. What helped me to start with, well, besides family, my dad was an entrepreneur, and like all entrepreneurs, he has no issue to assist with advice, not money for this kind of thing. It's your own journey. So I still am very close to friends that I've known when I was very young, but very young also I decided to start traveling. And through travel, you realize, especially when you travel before you're a family, when you travel, you're on your own. And you need to meet people, you need to create friends, you need to go toward people. And everyone who enjoy, traveling when you're on your own, you realize that it's a journey where you discover yourself quite a lot, and you learn about how to be independent and autonomous, unless you really want to be on your own all the time. You learn how to go toward people. And there is a bit of a paradox here, where on one side, family, friends in France, but on the other side, a journey in a way on my own, until then married, and we were more than one. It's a bit what happens when you start a business. You're not on your own, but it's a very tedious journey. Like Marcus was saying, cash. In the first Christmas, we were eating chicken only. Kids had to learn that this Christmas would be different from other Christmas. We didn't get paid. We discovered that some people take time to pay you. So cash, finance, sales, people, processes, structure, ISO certification. It's also one of the part that I really like. We were doing lots of IT stuff and then sales stuff, but we were never getting the full picture, because there will be sales operation, there will be HR, there will be. As your own entrepreneur, you realize that we get the full picture, and there is no such thing as executive, non-executive. It's even we've got employees working for us for many years. They are really part of the family, and they are also jack of all trade like us. And not all of them, not everyone can adjust to this. Leaving a large company where you're one element in an army, and joining a small group is quite different. But yeah, at the end, it worked out. We had a reason to do that. And essentially, at IBM, we frequently struggle to find a partner ecosystem with enough skills, with deep skills. And that's what we wanted to do, starting our own business. Not implementing and doing the easy stuff with products and solution, but trying to really, as much as possible, match the capabilities of solutions and products through our knowledge with customers' requirements. And after 4 years, yeah, we can say that so far so good. And it wasn't easy, and it's still difficult, but on multiple aspects, like people and processes and cash flow, which is the most important part in all business, I would say, to stay afloat. We managed to go through 2 years of COVID successfully, leveraging a lot the fact that on one side, Marcus in New Zealand, me in Australia, we managed to be back to back and assist each country when times were a bit difficult.
Nice. Thanks, guys, for this testimonial, because everybody say, "Oh, you own a company." No, oh, you're a rich person, and you just tell people what they need to do, and but very often they don't see the other side of the picture, right? And that's where some companies they fail, and not seeing how much effort you need to put, how much blood you need to put on the journey. So yeah, thank you. Before we move on, I forgot to ask in the beginning. Let's do like a polls like this, just for me, so I can do like a snapshot and then cheers. Brilliant. Go on. Oh, now we can dream, of course.
Woohoo!
Yes, I was doing a cleanup in my hard drive, and what do I found? Alexis toolbox. So for probably apart from Alex's team, no one knows what Alex's toolbox is. So Alexis is your invention. What is the Alexis toolbox? Marcus tried to teach me on using it. I did once, very poorly. But what is Alexis toolbox? What is that invention?
So I'm a very lazy person. So when I start doing things over and over again, I have the feeling that it's boring, and I'm putting lots of efforts to do over and over the same thing. So when I joined IBM, I remember doing all sorts of things manually until my mentor told me, "Well, Alexis, you just had to create a for loop and okay, do while." And then it was an introduction to automation. Went through all the corn shell training, Perl training. I ended up doing the same thing. I remember organizing a residency at IBM in Japan in our lab, and there is a feature on the S8000 called Metro Global Mirror, where trying to do failover, failback across the three sites can prove itself a bit complicated if you need to do it manually. And then after getting the people working on it for 2-3 days, I showed them a great product at that time called TPCR that does it all for you. And yeah, they were a bit disappointed that it took me so long for them to show them the tools. So I think the key thing around the toolbox, it's around automation. You've got products, it's great, but sometimes they fail. So you need to understand how to do things manually, but you also need to know how to, let's say, create automation to create this. So the toolbox was essentially in that. Sorry?
Did you evolve that tool after becoming Systemethix?
Yeah, well, basically, I think we were in quite a different position. When we were at IBM, the goal of a tool set like this was for us to do our job, which was troubleshooting customers' environment. So I had people in US asking for updates of the toolbox, but the point is we were each time talking about experts using the toolbox, and they know their stuff. It was what was it doing data collection, doing then data formatting, parsing, cleansing, and then creating report that you. So the goal was to say, let's stop wasting time collecting and preparing data. Let's focus more on analyzing the data. So what we did as we basically left the company was to continue in a way, but also learn from the mistakes. So the goal is to create tools that I would say are easier to set up, work without any module or special piece of code, can work more easily out of the box. But also the point is a majority of the development went far beyond Alexis toolbox. Marcus also, and we'll talk about it, developed a complete reporting framework. And very similarly, the goal is not to recreate a product that already exists. The goal is to fill a gap that we don't have today. And if you take a product like Spectrum Control, it's great. But Spectrum Control was essentially created to be able to work across products. And when you try to create, in a way, a language across product, you need to create a very simple language. So you start losing some information. While with the toolbox, the point is we don't try to create a perfect product that will work across EMC, NetApp, IBM storage. We are creating a product that works with IBM Storewise, IBM Flash System, and will give me everything that I can get out of the box to have a complete view. And Marcus will talk more in detail, but frequently you've got very product-specific products. So what I mean by this is you've got a storage resource management solution monitoring storage. Then you've got some products monitoring server or network. But how about getting a product that will give me an end-to-end view? Server, compute, storage, network, but also, I mean, talking about unstructured data, that covers unstructured data, but also the backup of the unstructured data, and trying to, and that's where we saw again a gap where and where we try to go. So I think it's probably the thing to remember about Systemethix. Frequently, I'm asked, what can you do for us? The question is, what can't you do? Tell me what can't you do, and we'll do it for you, because at IBM, one of our roles was to evaluate new product, was to introduce new product, was to learn very quickly new products. We can learn quickly, we can improve quickly, we can then teach quickly. And what we've been doing at IBM and now at Systemethix is really trying to fill a gap. If there is void, if there is a gap in your skill set or in your solution set, we can help you with that.
Perfect. Any comment on the tool, Marcus? Apart from that day that you tried to teach me on how to use it, let's skip this out of the.
I worked quite well. I think you produced the report successfully. To touch on that, yeah. So I mean, we pretty much left a little bit of that behind when we started our own journey, and the aim was to assist customers with things that haven't been done before. I mean, there's a few things like migrating petabytes of capacity from tape and millions of files from tape to an object storage, for example, but also managing one of our big clients that shall be unnamed here. We are managing a billion file, data lake for them, and we are extracting insights of that data for them. These are not actually big data analytics things, although we are using similar methods there, highly parallel scans and all these kind of things. But it's more about, I've got 150,000 users. Who's the guy with the most, capacity and files? And how much of my data is actually online and how much is offline and archived away? How much backup do we do per night across the whole landscape or for single nodes? What's the development of that? Which also helps us, one solution that Alexis is working on very intensively is, how to predict from a storage and backup perspective, have I been hit by a crypto locker? So I'm capturing, or I've created a tool also with, Alexis' kind of inspiration and ideas that does, track all this data and using open source kind of, front ends and back ends for that, adding our own expertise and inside knowledge helps us to kind of answer questions that cannot be answered out of the box of very capable products that we work with, but you're still missing sometimes the point and are not able to address a business need on that, where we add functionality with our tools, and again being lazy, right? It's like I don't want to do this every day. I just use a tool, I implement it, write some scripts, and make it do the work for me. which doesn't mean I don't look after it, but I kind of want
Make
to.
it easier, right?
Yep. Yep.
Make it easier. That's brilliant because two comments on that. The first one was when we created the spectrum control OVA to download and then put in for trial, right? So 30 days. The idea behind is exactly that. Hey, I don't want to lose 1 or 2 days deploying, installing, asking for a memory to the VMware administrator. I want the data from the tool, right? And to touch point on Alex's point, yes, when you need to manage so many different devices, there is that internal fight that no one talks about, which is the MIB. Who will be able to see what is inside each device MIB, right? So I don't want EMC to see my MIB and vice versa, and no one gets completely the information that the tool was giving. So that's why I provoked the topic. And secondly, I guess that it is very good on you guys because we need to think out of the box, right? And if we have a situation, we have a problem, and we don't have tools in our field to help us to address those concerns and problems, we need to build one. So yeah, brilliant. I guess that's a very good point. I like to believe in 3 pillars: process, technology, and people. Sometimes the tool is brilliant, is way too powerful, but because it is way too powerful and way too many options, it is hard to manage or maintain. And that's why you need people that with skills to do that service for us. And because it doesn't really matter what is the technology capability, but what it delivers. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, it's the outcome at the end. The key thing is results or outcome. I fully agree. How you do it, how long it takes, who is doing it. I mean, of course, they are still important, but the key thing is the outcome. What the customer really wants, at least the customers, decision makers, the people, the users, the application owners, what they care about is the outcome. Is it going to, are you going to deliver what I need? And that's one of the things we try to frequently do with our customers is detach from requirements that look like a bill of material and go to requirements that are more business related, that are more, function outcome related.
Yep. And after a while, clients realize that, right, and come to you with quirky queries, I would say, right, where you all of a sudden write out of the nowhere a automatic user provisioning tool, for example, based on REST API calls, which I've recently done for one of our clients to and hook that into their ServiceNow workflow, for example, right? Which is it was interesting for me as well because I've never kind of hooked anything up with ServiceNow, but yeah, it was pretty easy at the end once you understand kind of how it works. So and these are things that pop out. Then with enough skill and expertise, you can fairly quickly solve. As one of our colleagues, Robert, was saying, it's like, yeah, just come to us and talk to the team, and we will be able to give you an idea, and we will also tell you if we don't know, right, and can't help you because we've never touched that area. However, that's not happening too often.
Let me roll back 2 years now. A freshly new created company called Systemethix with 2 years. With at that time, as far as I remember, it was like with 2 or 3 employees. It was in the beginning, and suddenly we have a pandemic.
Yep.
What happened? how was things over there?
It's most so in many situations, you look at a customer, you look at a company. Let's step back, a company, and they need to manage risk. You complain about procurement, you complain about processes, decision. Basically, all these people are just trying to manage risk for their organization. Now comes a pandemic where most of them are struggling to survive, and risk becomes completely different. It's when they were looking at Systemethix being a small company more than 2 years ago, they saw a small company which means risk for their organization. Then COVID came in and they were trying to save. And suddenly they realized that to mitigate a cash flow, a financial risk, they need to go and to take the risk to go and pick up a small company called Systemethix. They know we've got the skills. They know we've been around now for at least 2 years. So obviously we are not part of those 50% or more of companies that get bankrupt within the first 2 years. But from my point of view, that's what happened is suddenly, and probably also through the maturity of our relationship with the first customers we got, but suddenly some people in the organizations that were saying, no, it's too risky, or like one of my customer coming to me saying, Alexis, we've got a problem. Your headquarters in New Zealand is out of a house. Yeah, well, it's the same in Australia too. What, really? Yeah, well, we are a small company. We are not going to. So the problem wasn't Systemethix don't have the skills. They don't deliver. No, it's their headquarters is in a house. Well, and so, but COVID came in and suddenly it was, you go back and you focus on fundamentals. And the fundamentals go back to your comment earlier. It's the outcome. Are they delivering the outcome I need? Yes. And actually, all the very large, I won't give their name, managed services company, just imagine international and two of the largest international managed services, when they've got a big problem, they come to Systemethix on our account. So why would then we not leverage Systemethix with those problems directly instead of getting them to help us indirectly, but through those managed services company? So I think the pandemic, in a way, created still problem. We struggle in Victoria with pipeline and so on. But overall, COVID changed radically the way our customers' procurement started thinking, and the way they were evaluating risk, handling risk mitigation completely changed. And it opened up a great perspective for us. And since then, our company has drastically increased 16. And knowing that, by the way, a key characteristic of Systemethix is last time we did the checks, it's 75-80% of our staff are techies. We work with customers in the field, and I'm excluding our SDM, who probably knows more than most techies. But so it means if I'm including him, it's over 80% of the company, it's techies. And in other words, 16 people, when 80% of them are techies, it's quite different from a regular organization where between sales, management, HR, and so on, you easily end up with, if you're lucky, a 50-50. And sometimes you have more like 20-30% techies and then everyone else.
And very good comment. So from a potential risk, it turned out to make it easier to prove the reliability of Systemethix in a way, right? So because if you deliver consistently good services, people know that they can count on you. Is that a fair statement?
It's sustainable if Marcus and I are the founder and we work every day. We work every day, but I mean by this, we will write down commands, programs, we'll connect to systems, we'll teach things to the new people in the team and so on. So we deliver. And so to a customer, when one customer asks me, but how confident you can be that you will be sustainable? Well, we are sustainable because in our model, more than 80% of the company generate cash directly, not selling and getting services, but actually delivering, executing, implementing.
Yeah, I hear your point here. Nice. Any comment on that on the New Zealand side?
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand, as you know, ABO was pretty much stopped. Our nice Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and her team and the Health Ministry decided to stop everything, which in a small country like New Zealand you can probably get away with, and we did. And you know, it didn't go so badly. At the same time, it was election year as well, which didn't help. And so the year 2020 with the virus, we saw a lot of our big projects that were basically signed off being pushed. Like where many customers just said, nope, sorry, waiting until this is over. So 2020 wasn't too easy. We were struggling a little bit here in New Zealand, especially. But like Alexis was saying, focusing on the essential, trying to be a little bit creative in finding, again, gaps in the market. How do you, like, if everything stops and everybody stops spending money, like happened here in New Zealand, as we know, only supermarkets open, they need to save money somewhere. And so trying to, in quotes, jump on that train and finding ways to actually reduce OPEX cost for customers did at least give us some revenue and some, helped us, keep afloat that year, which was not too easy, like I was saying. But then, funnily enough, as it always is after the election, all hell broke loose and things recovered very quickly and very positively for us. So, but overall, focusing on the outcome and pretty much almost guaranteeing a successful outcome from our side by really putting it in, standing for what we sell helps a lot in that sense. And being in the last resort, being the person who's responsible for that and customers being able to trust on that helps, I think, our cause.
So a quick question about you guys. You guys are the founder. So I was going to ask how big Systemethix is, but Alexis already answered that one. So you guys are the two founders, right? Are there any more? Because I remember there were a few more partners that they left the company, and now it is only you two.
Yeah, that's what you discover as you start your business. You've got a perception of what you expect out of this adventure, and probably sometimes we don't talk enough and don't fully understand what someone else's perspective is. But I think the key thing goes back to a discussion we had early on. It's when you've got people who are used to work in a large organization where they can do what they like to do, because there is enough for them to stay within a specific role when you're in a large company. And when you move to a micro company, it's nothing. It's people. It's a bunch of sole traders. And suddenly you can't do what you like. You've got to do what you've got to do, what you should do to get your cash in, to grow, you can't do just what you want to do. You've got to actually implementing, delivering, consulting, and sometimes I guess some of our original associates probably thought we would grow to a level where they could continue to do what they were doing when they were in a larger company. And to be, so it's not a matter of completely person, it's more the personality. Some people are meant, some people freak out if they are on their own in the middle of the wilderness watching a landscape. They need their crowd. Some people need the opposite, and that's kind of what we discovered. It's probably Marcus and I had a very similar experience, in the sense that when you're part of an advanced technical support, and they called it after skills team, you spend lots of time on your own working with a team, but you need to constantly reflect on a problem. And it means that you start forging a very strong knowledge about yourself and personality, and which is exactly the kind of personality you need when you start a business, especially if you're not going with investors injecting millions of dollars in the company, where you can start right away with tons of people. I mean, we were 4, we were then 5, then we were 4, then 3, and then slowly it's been growing, and 16. But each time, leveraging sometimes people outside, contractors to start with, that then join the team. So yeah, it's. I think that's why it changed things quite a lot, and 2 people left us. Yes.
It is not as exclusive things to you guys who have problem with partners, right? So that it is a different environment, and but this is what you get. You guys didn't invite me to be a partner, so yeah, I was not going to give anyone any problem. So, but that's the past.
I asked you to be careful with my ribs. My son broke my ribs yesterday.
Sorry, yeah, no
don't make me laugh too much, please.
Serious question. You can't lie. None of you can't lie. Who from the partners, who is the most stubborn?
Well, the other one is always the most stubborn.
Difficult, yeah. Who is the stubborn of the team?
We will always say it's not me, it's the other. I think it's human. Stubbornness is a finger pointing thing. I think the point.
Did you guys into a point, because all the whole team apart from Andreas, they are all English based, right? Did you guys get to a point in the discussion of you speaking in French and Marcus in German to say? Did you get to this situation like
staring at each other in our own language? You mean that?
Yeah, something like that.
Not yet. Alexis uses it a lot. So the favorite
people who worked with me would know that I swear in French in Detroit.
So yeah, I haven't yet in German. I think we
because you speak French. French, I know that. That's what I'm
a
saying.
little bit, yeah. I don't really speak it, but I understand a bit. So it helps a little bit. And having Andreas on board is always a good one as well. But we do have other people from lots of different countries, which is also interesting. Like, you know, it's a typical Australia, New Zealand business. I think we only have how many Kiwis? I think one or two here in New Zealand as employees, and then a few half Kiwis that grew up in Australia and born here and so forth. Yeah, it's a very diverse.
Yeah, a very diverse environment. Yeah.
And
it's great.
and I think it's always pick your fight. There is stubborn and stubborn. It depends on the situation. There is a context where sometimes it's better to be stubborn in troubleshooting than to be like a butterfly and saying, oh, but there is things here or there. So sometimes getting a goal, a bit like steering a boat, you know where you're trying to go, and you keep focus on what you need to do. So there are situations where being stubborn is extremely useful. There are other situations where indeed, yes, when I would say it's probably more internal things and so on, where then you need to try to discuss, negotiate, compromise, and you can't always steer things toward your way. It's that's life. You teach it to your kids, and then you.
I used to have a company in Brazil. I have partners. I use analogy that it is very similar to husband and wife, right? So if one disagree, the other one needs to very similar, I would say. But without the sex part, of course, but not on the topic here. In these 4 years, was there any moment that you guys can push in your minds? If there is not, no worries. But was there a moment that the vendor that was attending that client problem, oh, I don't know what to do, or I go up to here because this is my service agreement with you, and suddenly you guys you did the Systemethix effect on that client and you saved the day. Was there a moment that you guys can remember that you were engaged like in an emergency or any something like that, and you did something different, you added value on what was being done, and you saved the client?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there were quite a few. I know right away one for Marcus also. I'll tell one in Australia. Customer end up losing tons of the data that were archived, and they couldn't access them. They were told by the vendor, well, to recover everything, given you context, you know, lots of unstructured data, millions, billions of files, it's going to take you around 10 months to a year to do that. And using, I would say, experience, tools, automation, we did it in a month and a half. It was, a good example. So it means during this period, if people needed to access the archives, then they couldn't. And it goes back to it. And I can't blame the vendor here. The point here is you've got developers who are very product specific, but most of the time to solve this kind of thing, you need to have a knowledge that goes across multiple products, and it becomes more a solution than a product, if it makes sense. And I know Marcus has
they need to use. Sometimes they don't use the product, right?
They don't use, and sometimes you would be surprised on how sometimes development don't fully understand what the field is doing or needs, and we can be a bridge bridge a bit like a customer's attorney in that regard. But here it was really around knowledge of the products, of the solution, automation, and when this expression, when the only thing you have to sell is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's what I mean by solution. When you need to start recovering lots of archived data and pointers to this archived data, you need to have a combination between you need to understand how the data lake works, how the backup works, how can we restore from backups, but should we restore from tape backup? Should we restore from snapshot? How can I leverage replication? How can I combine everything? And how can I leverage my knowledge of the operating system on which it all sits? And that's where suddenly, if you don't have all this in place, you're here with your hammer, but you don't realize that, well, you need a hammer and a screwdriver because I've got some screws. And then actually a hammer is good, but this other guy has a nail gun and it might be a bit more efficient than using a hammer and so on. And I think that's the value that Systemethix can bring. It's this wider knowledge, this cross-product knowledge. But Marcus has a few great ones also. I know also you worked on. So Marcus, please.
Yeah, I would comment on that. It's taking a step back, looking at the big picture again, right? Not kind of focusing on a very isolated pillar, where I have probably a ton of examples. I'm curious, Alexis, which one did you have in mind for me there that came to your mind right away?
A broadcast company.
No.
A broadcast company, I would say, is one of them. But then it can be, for example, a university and its a backup not being performed completely.
True. There's a few things. The one interesting factor we had at some stage is I mentioned that very early, which was a fairly cool project, never been done before, having a large petabyte scale, tape archive of sequential kind of data, like media files in this case, and moving that to another platform. This platform, and my colleague and I spoke about this project at the last tech university that we were all allowed to partake in person, and that was a pretty cool one, and a funny story that happened there, which is both funny and also shows sometimes how you need to pivot when things don't work out the way you initially thought they will, and that helps. I think being this company, having that expertise, we were the only one that I know of that could pull this end-to-end migration off fairly, in a fairly controlled way. It took a few months, but it was quite interesting. So we had to move the data from an unsupported environment, DCS 9900, on a large unstructured data footprint software from IBM, onto a brand new Power 9, it might have been a Power 8 cluster. And how do you do that, right? So the first idea was, okay, we'll just present those LANs to the new storage system, again, IBM branded Storewise, and we'll just let the Storewise do all the work of ingesting the disk-based part of the archive. And the team, I was actually on holiday at the time on Fiji with my family, the very first holiday after working very hard to start up the business, kind of as a reward. And the team based out of New Zealand was running that migration. And it was also supported by our good friend, Mr. White, who gave some pointers around how to, do the exact presentation of these.
I invited him to hijack on this, but he didn't answer me. But yeah.
No, I think he's fighting with a pandemic at the moment, literally. So we did then, or the teammate, my teammate, presented the storage from this old array to the new array, started sucking in the data, presented the data LANs to the new cluster, and it kind of worked. But then when it started actually accessing the data and trying to mount the file system, it said, "Nah, your disks are broken." And eventually we figured out that Storewise was still using an old driver for the old, very old, legacy storage system that only allowed 2 terabytes, while the LANs were 6 terabytes of size. So my colleague found that out. That was pretty good, troubleshooting skills. But then, our plan didn't work. What do you do now? And me sitting on a boat, literally, having had a couple of beers already, thinking about, what do we do now? While on the telephone conference with the customer and the team, it's like, we just do it another way. We just hook up the old storage to the SAN and the new servers to the SAN, and we'll just do a direct import because Linux will just work with those LANs directly. So that, within a few minutes, I came to that conclusion. Yep, there's another way, another avenue, and we don't have to start completely from scratch because it's very simple to set that up. And having that understanding of how storage works, how Linux understands this, and how the software works in depth, allows you to do these, to make these suggestions and seemingly save the day. While for me, that was just the next step at the end of the day, right? Quickly doing that. And another one was also very interesting recently. We did have a problem during a big cluster upgrade operation on the Open Heart, where we were going from Big Indian Linux to Little Indian Linux. And that was also an interesting one where, after working through for about 10 hours overnight and being awake the whole day before that, I needed to very quickly find a solution and fix the problem while the system was in production running, already having it turned back into, production state, to figure that out, which was also quite a little cool experience.
Nice. Well, that was amazing. Do you guys have weekends? Do you have time for sailing? Because you were telling me, Mark, the other day the amount of hours that you guys are working is stupid. Did you guys, after 4 years, do you guys have like a, hey, I will not work today, it is all good? Can you have that luxury or still?
I guess maybe I start because you touched on sailing. This year, or this past kind of Christmas break, was the first time for me in 4 years where I really did not have to work for 10 days straight. I have to admit, I touched the computer twice because one of the colleagues had a problem, but it was only 10 minutes and we fixed it quickly. So I consider that as not working, just giving advice. And as a business, owner or founder, with that kind of expertise, you're kind of always a little bit on call.
You are responsible for it, right? Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
In a way, right? So we did. So that was the first time, and yes, I did go sailing because I kind of made it now my sport after 3.5 years last year to obtain a very old 30-year-old sailing boat, and we do Friday boat days because Friday is usually a meeting day where we sit on meetings most of the time, and that's perfect to sail out, be on a call, and enjoy. Switch off a little bit, at least, right? See a different horizon than in the office here,
Brilliant, amazing. I'll still we'll book some time to
Yep.
learn sail, because I'm doing motorboat at the moment. Is not as fun as, so yeah.
Friday boat day, just ping me when you're free. And
Okay.
I'm working from the boat, of course.
Okay, don't, well, we're not going to tell the other partner this information. So yeah, let's keep it quiet. Alex, do you have weekends?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Marcus was saying. The problem is the challenge for us is, especially as you start a small and you grow the company, we are always a level of escalation. So it means when really either Marcus or I are completely off the grid for any reason, we tend to inform each other in case the other one would need to jump in. I went to the Matisse exhibition last weekend with family and had my laptop in the car in case I had to then leave the exhibition and suddenly connect because I was on call. So after the first 2 years, didn't take any leave at all. 2 years and 1 quarter. Then I took leave. Well, actually, and yeah. And I had my first week with no work at all last Christmas. That was quite complete disconnect. But I think we signed for it. We knew the first few years would be tough. An alternative would have been to again go with investors and get cash in and be able to be bigger right away. It wasn't completely the philosophy and what we had in mind when we started the company. And so yeah, we signed for it. So unfortunately,
Brilliant.
But at the same time, to be fair, I remember being part of an ATS team, being in the middle of a barbecue in Japan with friends, and 2 hours later, I was in a limousine bus going to the airport to go for 2 weeks of troubleshooting in Asia. So is it so different? Yes, because probably the frequency is like of events is a bit higher. Since we have our own business. But yeah, it's quite similar to.
It is a personal touch, and I would say that is a personal touch. I have almost 2 decades at IBM, and I'm not part of the support organization, at least 15 years. Yeah. And until today, I have clients that instead of raising a ticket, sometimes they prefer to call me, to text me, to send an email for me, and that happened with you guys, I'm pretty sure, because that's kind of the confidence, the credibility that you build with your client, right? So yeah, I understand that it is not only part of the entrepreneur journey, but also it is you guys, right? So people trust you, so that's the point.
At the end, people buy from people, right? And we're trying to build something that makes this more broad, and you have more shoulders to distribute that weight on. But at the end, you and the business need to realize that you're establishing relationships and credibility, especially, right? Being able to deliver time and time again eventually pays off.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Guys, I don't want to hold you anymore. Thank you for this very special first episode of 2022. It was amazing. I really enjoyed this hour-ish with you guys. Any final comments so we can wrap up here and we can finish and have another drink?
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, exactly. And we've got sometimes these questions around what it is to start a company. And if you've got anyone watching this video who seeks,
I hope so. I hope at least 1 or 2 people. Yeah.
Advice. They need any advice on how to start their business, what to think about, or whatever. Yeah, they shouldn't hesitate to contact us. Systemethix.com. We've got a bio page. They can contact us. It doesn't have to. You don't need to be a customer or a vendor. You just have your own personal dream to start a business, and you seek some help. We'll be more than happy to help you. And obviously,
Can I share your LinkedIn profiles in the description of the video?
absolutely not a problem.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, again, thank you. It was amazing. I really love it. And see you in the next episode of abiliotalks. Yes, bye.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Emilio.
Have a good one. Cheers.